So I'm going to share some insights into Google Play and some of the changes we've made and how Google is sort of approaching families. And how many people here are app and game developers? I always like to get a sense. Okay. Apps and games developers, you'd be in there. And how many create apps and games just for kids versus for kids and adults, like mixed age audience? Okay, excellent. So who knows which year the current set of kids going into kindergarten in the fall are going to be graduating from college? With math. Yeah, 2033. Who knows? A harder question. Who knows what jobs they're going to have at that time? So 60% of the jobs, according to recent polls, 60% of the jobs that are going to be available to them in 2033 have not even been thought about yet. And in fact, one of the US Secretary of Education sort of was saying, how do we prepare kids for jobs that we don't exist, the technologies that haven't been invented, and to solve problems that no one knows are problems yet? So Google is like, okay, with the help of our partners, how do we tackle that challenge? So the good news is, while things are going to change and we don't know what's going on, kids' curiosity is a constant, and that really helps us. So what we did was to think about what skills are needed, to prepare kids for these jobs that we don't know. We worked with the intelligence unit of The Economist to poll business leaders on what are the things that we think kids need to learn now to be effective in the workforce then. So I'd love to get from you guys any thoughts on what this, and it's a small group, let's keep it interactive. So otherwise I'll call on people. What do you think are the top skills that kids would need to know? Programming, coding, good choices. I actually was thinking finance, accounting and all. So as it turns out, those are important. But what's most important is things like problem solving and collaboration and working in teams and creativity and communications, which, now in hindsight doesn't seem surprising. And while the hard skills are important, no matter what the problems are, you're going to need them. And in fact, we see this at Google today, right? When we think about global innovation, it's about working with teams. We have teams that are working, that are in disparate sort of countries and cultures and languages. But we also have, for example, the Google Lens, which is a contact lens which checks your level of glucose through your eye. We have teams of biologists and urologists who are working with computer programmers and engineers. So how do you talk a common language between those? Or for Project Loon, which is the experiment where you have hot air balloons providing internet connectivity to inaccessible areas, we talk, the engineers are communicating with meteorologists and trying to build something together. So you see that, for innovation, collaboration is important. Similarly, creativity. If you don't know what the problems are going to be, then how do you apply intelligence to solve them? We look at self-driving cars. Artificial intelligence is in a lot of our products, and just as you had industrial machines replacing blue-collar workers, there's a sense that now computers are replacing white-collar jobs. But even with that, for the things computers don't understand, right? The creativity to understand what those problems are, and then how do you use computers to solve them? Now, I know when I was growing up, there's a lot of information out there, and it involved going to the library, looking up some encyclopedias to write a report. But now there's more and more and more information, right? On the web, on computers, on our phones, on our devices, watches, wrist, eye. But kids will need to understand, how do you sift through all that to find out what's really important and what to use. And so that's why thinking about that the poll results now don't seem surprising at all, right? And from a Google perspective, we think about how do we harness sort of how do we help technology, how do we use technology to help kids really apply those skills to problems that we don't know. So Google's doing a ton of stuff, and I'm going to, I can't talk about everything across at Google, but at least on the Play side, I can talk about some of the things that we are, working on. So Google Play for Families is something we launched about a year ago now. Can't believe it's been a year. How many people have apps and games that are in the family program, have opted into Google Play for Families? The rest of you, if you're creating apps and games for kids or that are mixed age, you might consider opting into the program. Because this is basically a destination for parents and kids on Play to find great content for kids. And so a year on now, what are we doing to sort of improve performance? We're thinking more and more about parents as a segment. So how do we identify when someone comes to the store that they're a parent, right, without asking them? And how do we then make the experience better? So what we do is use algorithms to understand this is our parent segment. And for those people, we put, the family, there's a quick link to view the family section to help discovery, as a lot of our developers have asked for. We also see that character pages are very important to kids and are used a lot, where all the things pertaining to a particular character, whether it's books, movies, TV shows, as well as apps, and made by a variety of developers, are all in one place. So we're expanding the character set. I think we had 34 new characters. And then we are thinking now about, well, as a family unit, what are the things families care about? Last December, we launched Google Play, the family plan for music, which is a subscription for up to 6 people in a family. For $14.99 a month, they can all get access to music. But what's really interesting here is the fact that there was a concept of a family created, right? So it's up to 6 people who are under a family manager with a shared form of payment, and who can now, choose content and be able to share that content. And there's a lot more we can do with that, right? Music was only the first foray. And what we also did was think about how do then, in that family context, one of the things we hear is how can kids pay for stuff? Kids want to get stuff, as Guy pointed out, and my kids especially have gotten used to watching reward videos. But if the parent is not around, if they don't want to bother the parent, we want to make it easier for parents to approve purchases for their kids. So we're adding purchase approvals where, as a family manager, if your, kid wants something, you can actually, they bring the device over to you and you can approve that for them. Right then and then, we're thinking about how do you do that remotely? How, what are the different people in the family who can approve that? And you can set it up for, approving for your kids, but not for your spouse. They can just, do whatever they want. But with that shared family payment method, you're removing a big point of friction. People now don't have to put down a credit card to actually make a payment. It's all there. VR is also something that, Google and a lot of other companies are focused on. Was anyone able to go yesterday to, I think my colleague Jamil was presenting about, Google's plans for VR. So we are basically, like I think a lot of other companies, very excited about that, and especially in the kids space. And as we think about, what are, we talked to sort of parents, educators, etc., what are the key components that we need in a VR app for kids? And the feedback we got is it needs to be at least, immersive, so it's a no-brainer, interactive, and also have a way to measure results. So for example, in this language learning app, you can use conversational techniques to be able to, understand that other language. But imagine if it's a VR app, you're immersed within the sort of conversation with no distractions, and it helps you, through the experiential learning, learn better. Similarly, interactivity. There's a physics app where two kids are trying to understand what the mass of the ball needs to be to knock over a pin. They can be in the same room. They can be 2 different corners of the world. But because they're immersed in this and they're interacting and they're making incremental changes, they're actually learning better than just watching someone do it or reading about it. So on the measurement of results, though, I think we're kind of not there yet. Those are some of the things to think about. How do you measure efficacy, right? How do you know that this is working? And without making what you're doing into a boring sort of quiz and quizzing the kids every 2 minutes. This is something we're also thinking about, and be exciting to, sort of work with some of you guys who are thinking about VR to figure out how to incorporate this. So I've talked about, what we're doing for kids and how that matters. And then I want to switch gears a little and talk about kind of some of the new Google Play, what some of the stuff we've done on the developer front. By the way, how many people here were at Google I/O? Oh, that's very few. Okay. So for the one person who came, my scientific poll, do you prefer this location? Do you prefer the location was this year or Moscone? Moscone? Okay, yeah. Okay, good. We were trying to get feedback on that. So this is my, data set of 1. Thank you, Barry. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about, since a lot of you, it seems like we're not there, I'll touch on some of the recent announcements from I/O and earlier in the year. So I have this slide. This is not new, but as we've done sort of research into looking at the how kids and family apps have performed, unlike any other category, this is the one category where the bulk of the revenue comes from tablets and not phones. And so it is very important that you think about optimizing for tablets. And in fact, we have tablet guidelines up on the developer site to let you know how to do that. And that makes sense, right? Especially kids, especially young kids, don't have their own phones, but there are tablets which are kind of the shared family device that a lot of them are on. So this is a question I always ask, so now I'm going to phrase it differently. For all those who are using alpha and beta testing, how many people have used open beta? Closed? Okay, cool. So how many don't know what beta testing, and that's fine. What it does is it's a way to test your app before you publish it in the store, and to get feedback on that from users without having that contribute to your rating. Which, if there's a problem, someone gives you a negative rating, then you're kind of you're starting off you dug yourself into a hole that's very hard to get out of. And so we had this concept of the ability to test alpha and beta versions, and feedback from developers was like, well, can you get, we want to be able to test with more than just the users we bring. So we had the concept of open beta, where you can basically just have anyone, and you can set a limit, sign up to beta test your app and give you private feedback. And now they can do it just from the store listing page. Google Play Early Access is also something we announced at I/O, and what that does is for select apps and games, it helps, it gives the ability for users to find them while they're in production, before they're in production, so even while in the test phase, to be able to test them and give you guys private feedback. So anyone use pre-reg or knows about pre-registration? So what pre-registration does is it allows you to, if you have users who really love your apps, and the next one that comes out, they're going to want to know in advance. So what you can do is you can allow them to pre-register, right, for your upcoming app or game, where when it launches, then Google will just send them a notification and then they can download it. So instead of them having to come back and figure out when it's coming out, they can just sign up for it, and then we handle the flows, and when you launch it, the user has the option of getting it. Anyone use Firebase Test Labs? So this is our sort of virtual testing. How many people think we have too many? It's very hard to test on all the devices and Android versions out there. This is one of the common complaints we got. And so, people are like, well, there's so many devices to buy, and we are small companies and don't want to go bankrupt doing that, and we agree with that. So what we did was we've set up kind of this virtual test lab where you can virtually test your app or game on real devices and understand its performance on a variety of devices, operating systems, etc. And you generate a pre-launch report which tells you how it did. So on did it crash immediately, or did it crash while it was sort of in the app on the devices? How do screenshots look in different languages, cultures, etc. And then also how we look at the APK for vulnerabilities and let you know if there's any vulnerability that we found. Would this catch voices? So right now we're looking at crashes. So because that was the most requested thing, and also screenshots are more visual. I don't think we have voice there yet, but that's feedback that we can take to say, can we test the voice? If there's a way to do it, in an automated way, hopefully we should be able to do it. If someone has to listen, that's obviously going to be a bit harder. And then this is something that's going to be coming out soon, contextual discovery. And we've heard from a lot of you, discovery is highly important in place. So, and that makes sense. So what we're trying to do is understand from a user's searches, from their views, to understand context, and say, well, if we know that they're looking at Trulia and they're looking to buy a house, what are other things they might be interested in that are relevant to buying a house? Or if they're planning a trip to San Francisco, what are relevant things to show them, right? So, or if they're even looking for wallpaper, we can understand they're trying to personalize their phone and give them relevant suggest relevant other apps that they would be interested in. So that's something that is coming soon. And then, has anyone here done store listing experiments? Okay, good. So I won't talk much about this, just to say that an example is Baby First, that conducted a store listing experiment on their icon. The new icon got 10% more installs, and so they moved they change it to that. But now, by the way, we have the ability to do up to 5 experiments at the same time. That was one of the developer feedback we heard that we incorporated. Who's used promo codes? Okay, we need more people to use promo codes and let us know how they're doing. And basically what it does is, it says, you can do kind of a self-service campaign if you want to get your product out, or either the app or, an in-app, single in-app purchase within it, etc., to like a group of, I don't know, influencers, early adopters, what have you. You can generate up to 500 codes from the developer console yourself and get them out to users. So it's a good way to kind of generate that early buzz, get, good feedback, and get a new app, for example, off to a great start. Now, reviews and ratings are very important, and we've seen the difference that a rating makes. It's very, very directly and exponentially connected to revenue. And so that's something that our developer, so our team internally that focuses on making play better for developers looks at hard, and we've made a few changes on that. So earlier this year we talked about just the fact that you can look at your reviews over time across devices, countries, etc., and versions of apps, and also gave you the ability to respond to reviews. We've actually noticed on average, so similar to what you're saying, notice on average when you respond to a review across everyone who's done that, not just, and maybe in the kids app space, maybe parents are more forgiving, it goes up more, but typically it goes up at least 0.7 stars, which is the difference of, if you take it from 3 something to 4 something, and remember I said revenue is exponentially tied to your star rating. So a couple of things that we've done on that, but everyone spends a lot of time, and I talk with a lot of you guys and a lot of developers who spend a lot of time focusing on getting educators involved, building really great apps, and we talked about learning, etc. But these simple things, and not things that are not even related to what the content of your app is, are what really causes it to be successful or not. And we've noticed, and more than half the time, 1-star reviews are not about what the app had in it, but just the fact that it had problems and with stability or it had bugs, etc. And in fact, 2/3 of the times you get a 5-star review, people comment on the speed and the performance. So so this is just as important, and maybe if not more, than the content of what's in your app or game. So some of the things we've done to make it easier for you guys to understand apps and reviews is review highlights. So what that does is goes through all the reviews you have and picks out kind of common themes that people are saying. So for example, you may think, Guy may think that in that game, the wedding scene was really important, but people could be commenting on something else and you're like, wow, I didn't realize that this was good. Maybe this is another way to kind of market what I'm, sort of market what I'm doing better, or it tells you what people are reacting to, and that sort of changes over time dynamically as more people react to different things. We also have, we also let you know how, for a dynamic sort of set of words, and again, dynamic because it changes as your reviews change, but just for that particular app, how are those terms contributing to your reviews and your ratings, and how those words in your reviews are contributing to your rating and what you can do about that. So it gives you a sense of, wow, in this example, layout, huge problem, didn't know that, everyone's saying that, let me fix that. And benchmarks is where we benchmark your app or game against other like apps or games with, on a set of, common topics. This is your usability, design, speed, etc. And you can get a sense of how you're doing relative to other apps or games like yours. Anyway, so that's kind of the sort of what I had to talk about with you guys today. Yes, that's a self-service promo code, but if you want to do a campaign with more, then we talk with you and can do that internally. But this way you don't have to, you can just do it on your own, so without worrying about that. The 4 models that we've seen for kids apps, and I think talking to a lot of the people in the room, they should be able to give you guidance on that. So the 4 typical models are premium, in-app purchases, subscriptions, which is becoming more and more popular, and then also ads. And I think Guy did a good job of talking about how they use those. There seems to be this stigma in the kid space. Oh, we can't show kids ads, but I'm like, so long as they're appropriate, kids see ads on on TV, etc. So we're not wedded to any particular this is better or not. I think it depends on your content. Barry has a story about how when they moved one of their games onto freemium, they noticed that performance was better for revenue and installs than on the premium version, right? So it depends on what your content is. Typically, premium works well if you're someone who is a well-known brand. So if a parent knows you and they know your next thing is coming and you're premium, and that's why I think Tokaboka's had success with that model, they know what they're getting, and so they're willing to pay for it up front. But a lot of times parents are like, well, we hear this so much, I'm not sure, I don't know if my kid will like it, and so I don't want to make a decision, and I don't want to I'd rather sort of not pay for it. And I don't know why even for 99 cents they have a problem paying, but they're like, we'll pay $19.99 if it's something we know they'll like, right? And so that's where a freemium model comes in, where they can get a taste of that, they can get a sense of their kid likes it, and then, with an in-app purchase, they can buy it. I think having multiple in-app purchases versus having a, 2 or 3 is probably a bit more challenging, since if it's for younger kids, they're not able to, if they can't make the purchase themselves, then you're kind of, irritating the parent with kind of nickel and diming them a little, which, works well, I think, in the games when someone's playing a game for themselves in the moment. But I think from a parent perspective, that's a little bit of a harder model. Not saying it can't be done, but I think that's harder. Subscriptions works well because it's a known quantity, parents know what they're getting, and it's also kind of a lower cost to get in. But in that case, you need to think about, do I have enough content to keep it fresh?
Thank you very much. Thank you.